Welcome to MN Arts YouTube channel, where we offer online learning solutions or digital learning solutions where you can study from the comfort of your home. Moving on to our next subject, Christian religious education. Based on the Kenyan system of education, the next lesson is the introduction to Christian religious education. Welcome to Form 1 Christian religious education lesson 3.
Hi, I'm Sarah. Our topic is about the division of the Bible. You are welcome. The Bible is one book, but it is divided into sections. We have two major divisions of the Bible. That is the Old Testament. Number 2, the New Testament. The word testament simply means covenant or agreement. And so the Bible has got two covenants here. There is the covenant that was entered by God with the Israelites on Mount Sinai, that is the Old Testament. And we have the New Testament that God entered into a covenant with the human race on the cross where Jesus Christ was crucified. The Old Testament. The Old Testament the Old Testament is further divided into 4 groups. We have the law books, we have the historical books, we have the poetic books, and then we have prophetic books. The law books are also called the Torah or the Pentateuch. These are the first 5 books of the Bible. We have the book of Genesis, we have the book of Exodus, we have the book of Leviticus, then the book of Numbers, and then the book of Deuteronomy. The first book, that is the book of Genesis, spells out the beginning of the earth, the world as it is, and everything that is there. The book of Exodus speaks about the call of Moses, the release and the journey of the Israelites from Egypt towards the promised land. The book of Leviticus talks about the law of the Lord being broken down. The law had been given in the book of Exodus, but it is the law that is broken down into simpler units. Then we have the book of Numbers, where the Israelites were being taken the census. They were now many, and there was need to have a census. The first ever census that was taken in the human race. And then we have the book of Deuteronomy, which is also talking about the law of God, the rewards, and the judgment that comes out as a result of breaking the law, or the rewards that comes out as a blessing when somebody obeys the law or the word of the Lord. Number 2, we have the historical books. The historical books are 12. We have the book of Joshua, the book of Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, the book of Ezra, the book of Nehemiah, and the book of Esther. Those are the number of books that we have that contain the history of the Israelites as they settled in the new land. First under the leadership of the judges, and later under the leadership of the kings as they demanded. Then we have the third group of books, which are 5 in number, the poetic books. These are also called the books of wisdom. They have wise sayings. They include the book of Psalms, the book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, the book of Songs of Solomon, and then the book of Job. They are 5 in number. Then we have the last group, and that is the prophetic books. These prophetic books are divided into 2 groups. We have the major prophets, and then we have the minor prophets. The major prophets are 5 books. They were written by the prophets whose names are also written on them, except for the book of Lamentations, which was written by Jeremiah. So we have the book of Isaiah, the book of Jeremiah, the book of Lamentations, which was written by Jeremiah, the book of Ezekiel, and then the book of Daniel. The books are referred to as major prophets because the writers put down volumes of work, voluminous, large amount of work. Number 2, they stayed in the office for a long time in history. Those are the reasons why they are referred to as the major prophets. Then we talk about the minor prophets. The minor prophets include, they are 12 books. They include the book of Hosea, the book of Joel, the book of Amos, Obadiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Jonah, Micah, Haggai, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, and Malachi. Now these books, the writers or the authors took a short time in writing them, and also their workload is small. You'd find that a book has got 3 chapters, 5 chapters, 9 chapters, as compared to a book like for Isaiah and Jeremiah, more than 50 chapters. That work is very wide. It is so much detailed. They talked about so many topics. They handled so many issues in the history of the Israelites. They could even extend to outside the borders of the Israelites, you see. So we have those ones. And that one brings us to the end of our the division of the Old Testament. And then now we talk about the division of the New Testament. We have the Gospels, then we have a historical book, then we have the letters, and number 4, we have prophetic book. I've said there are 4 groups of books in the New Testament. Number 1, we have the Gospels. Number 2, we have a historical book. Number 3, we have the letters. And number 4, or group 4, we have a prophetic book. The Gospels are 4. The first group, there are 4 books there. And these Gospels are referred to as the Synoptic Gospels. They were written by 4 authors. All of them, they talk about the conception, the life, and the ministry of Jesus Christ. They even extend to the death, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus Christ. So they contain similar information, but like the book of St. Luke, it was addressed to people who are outside the Jewish tribe. Now, the books are the book of Matthew, then we have the book of Mark, then we have the book of St. Luke, and then we have the book of John. Matthew was written by Matthew himself. The book of Mark was written by Mark, and the book of St. Luke was written by Dr. Luke. All these were disciples of Jesus. And then the book of John was written by the most beloved disciple of Jesus. Yes. Then we go to the second group of section in the New Testament, and that is a historical book, and that is the Acts of the Apostles. This book was written by the apostles of Jesus Christ and on the establishment of the early church. Soon after the ascension of Jesus Christ, the disciples started to preach as they had been commanded by their leader. He told them, go ye into the world. And so they went, and the church that they could form, they could write some information about it, their experiences, and it is covering the history. It is covering the history of the early church and the coming down of the Holy Spirit. Then we have the letters. The letters are divided into two. We have those that were written by Paul, the apostle of Christ. Then we have those that we call the Catholic letters or universal letters. They are general letters. Now the letters include the Romans, the book of Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, the Galatians, the book of Ephesians, Philippines, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy. Then we have the book of Titus and Philemon. Those were written by Paul. The general letters include the book of Hebrews, James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd and 3rd John, and the book of Jude. Then we have the last group of books. The last section is the book is a prophetic book, and that is the book of Revelation. It was written. The book of Revelation was written by the most beloved disciple of Jesus, and that is John, who wrote the gospel according to John. He wrote the book while he was in the island, and it contains revelations of God on what will happen to the last days of the world. And probably what we are experiencing now is what was spoken, partly is what was spoken by him. And that brings us to the end of our lesson, and we are thankful. Kindly remember to write your comments at the bottom of your video there, and you can also ask questions so that we can address them in the next lesson before we do the next lesson. So you can write your comments because they will help us to grow together, and questions also you can ask so that we can be able to answer them, and they will help us to get more information. Thanks a lot.
We're very grateful that you found time to watch our content. Kindly press the subscribe button down there and leave a like if the content was helpful to you. Join us in the next lessons. Thank you.